Welcome to Beautiful Thrift Homemaking. I'm Linda. We're reading through a vintage cookbook from 1917. It's called A Thousand Ways to Please a Husband. And we are in the month of December in the storyline, which began in June. We are on chapters 94 and 95 for this episode. Chapter 94, The Firelight Social. "And what have you been doing all day?" asked Bob, after he had related his own experiences at the office. "Just my usual work this morning, and this afternoon I went to a meeting of the social committee of our Young People's League. You know, I've promised to help this winter. They plan a social to be given in about 2 weeks to raise money for the orphanage fund. And I do think their idea is a clever one. You see, it's a firelight social. Admission 10 cents. Mrs. Lewis has offered her house for it. Invitations are to be sent to all members of the church, Sunday school, and league, inviting people to come and read pictures in the fire. The cards are to be decorated with little pen and ink sketches of hearthstones with burning logs on them. Of course, there will be a huge log in her big fireplace. Then, as soon as the guests are gathered around, someone is to read aloud that passage from Our Mutual Friend, where Lizzie Hexam reads the pictures in the firelight for her brother. Then pencils and paper will be passed among the guests, and each one writes a short description of the pictures he sees in the fire. In 10 minutes, these are collected and read aloud with a prize for the best one. Then corn will be popped and marshmallows toasted. Then supper will be served by candlelight. It will consist of things like sandwiches, cider, coffee, nuts, and cookies. Don't you think a firelight social will be fun?" "Sure it will, but I'm glad tonight we can be alone by our own firelight, Bettina." That evening for dinner, Bettina served fried oysters, baked potatoes, Bettina's relish, asparagus on toast, apple tapioca, cream, and coffee. And we'll look through those recipes after we read the next chapter. Chapter 95 is called Alice's Troubles. "Why, Alice, come in. Are you going out to dinner or just on your way home from some afternoon party?" "I'm going downtown to dinner with Harry. I'll meet him there, and afterward we are going to the theater." "What fun!" "Yes, fun for me," said Alice slowly. "I persuaded him to go. Just think, Bettina, we haven't been to the theater one single time since we've been married. And that is, let's see, about 6 weeks," said Bettina, laughing. "Come into the kitchen, Alice. I'm making a cranberry pie for dinner." "A cranberry pie? One of those darling crisscrossy ones?" said Alice joyfully, throwing off her evening cloak. "Do let me help. I used to make little cranberry pies in a saucer when I was little. I had forgotten that they existed. Harry shall have one tomorrow." And she rolled out the crust with deft fingers. "How easily and quickly you do everything, Alice." "Yes, too easily. Getting breakfast is fun, and getting dinner is fun, but it's over too soon. What do you do in the evening, Bettina?" "Oh, stay at home and read and mend, mostly. What do you do?" "That's the trouble. Don't you get dreadfully bored just sitting around? Harry likes it, but I don't see how he can." "But aren't you tired in the evening? I suppose he is." "Tired? Mercy, no. Not with the care of that little apartment. I like fun and excitement and something to do in the evening. I've been studying household economy, as you suggested, and I've learned a lot, but I can't be doing that all the time. Well, I must run on, Bettina. Let me know how the pie turns out." That night, Bettina served Bettina's pork chops and dressing, baked potatoes, applesauce, bread, butter, cranberry pie, and coffee. And we have Bettina's recipes for the pork chops, the applesauce, the cranberry pie, and the pie crust for it. So let's go back to chapter 94 and we'll look at the recipes. The fried oysters are for 2 portions, And that would be 12 oysters, 1/2 cup cracker crumbs, 1 tablespoon of egg, 1 tablespoon water, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon paprika, 2 tablespoons of fat. Look over the selected large oysters to remove the shells. Mix the egg, water, salt, and paprika. Dip the oyster in the egg mixture and then in the crumbs. Place the fat in the frying pan and, when hot, add the oysters. Brown nicely on each side 3 minutes. Serve very hot on a hot platter. Garnish with parsley. And then she has a relish to go with the oysters. It's called Bettina's Fried Oyster Relish, and this is again for 2 portions. 1 cup of cabbage cut fine, 1 green pepper cut fine, 1 pimento cut fine, 1/4 teaspoon celery salt, 1/8 teaspoon mustard, that would be the dry powder mustard, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of sea sugar, that would be light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons vinegar. Mix the celery salt, mustard, salt, and sugar. Add the vinegar. Pour over the pimento, green pepper, and cabbage. Serve as a relish with oysters and meats. This relish should be served within 1/2 hour after it is made. Now we have asparagus on toast for 2 portions, which is 1/2 can of asparagus tips, 1 cup vegetable white sauce, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon pepper, 2 slices of toast. You will heat the asparagus tips in the liquid in the can. When hot, remove from can upon slices of toast. Sprinkle salt and pepper over each portion. Pour 1 serving of white sauce over each portion. If by any chance you're one of the few who have been with me during these episodes from the beginning, I believe it was chapter 20 that covered the different sauces, especially the white sauces. So she went over 4 recipes for white sauce in her in chapter 20 because white sauces are very important to all the meals in 1917, at least according to this cookbook. She uses white sauces over almost everything, whether it be tuna or vegetables. Okay, apple tapioca for 2 portions is made with 4 tablespoons of pearl tapioca, 3 tablespoons of cold water, 1 cup boiling water, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 4 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 teaspoon vanilla, and 2 sour apples. Soak the tapioca in the cold water for 10 minutes in the upper part of the double boiler. Add the boiling water and salt. Cook until transparent, about 20 minutes. So those little pearl tapioca beads, they become translucent. And she calls it transparent, so they get clear. Cut the apples fine. Mix thoroughly with the sugar. Place in the bottom of a small baking dish. Pour the tapioca mixture on them and bake in a moderate oven until the apples are soft, about 25 minutes. The time depends upon the variety of apple. All right, and in chapter 95, we had the recipes for the pork chops and the applesauce and the cranberry pie. So for the pork chops, this is also for 2 portions, 2 pork chops, 1/2 teaspoon chopped onion, 1 tablespoon chopped green pepper, 1 1/2 cup fresh bread crumbs, 1/4 teaspoon of chopped parsley, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of melted butter, 1 egg yolk, 1/4 teaspoon celery salt, and 1 tablespoon of water. Add the onion, green peppers, parsley, salt, and celery salt to the crumbs. Add the egg yolk, butter, and water, and mix thoroughly. Wipe the chops and place one in a small pan to serve as a roasting pan. Place the dressing on top. Place the other chop on top of the dressing. Press together and bake in a moderate oven 1 hour. Moderate oven is probably 350 degrees. Turn the chops so the under one will brown. Baste occasionally with 1/4 of a cup of hot water to which has been added 1 teaspoon of butter. Put a lid on the pan so that the steam will cause the chops to cook. Place 1 tablespoon of water in the pan to prevent burning or drying out. Replenish when necessary. I think the thing I noticed about this recipe in particular that really stands out to me is the small quantities that are involved in making this dish. And this is the main dish, the main course for this dinner. So you notice that it just takes 1 egg yolk and a tablespoon of melted butter, some seasoning, and then you've got your vegetable part, which is a tablespoon of chopped green pepper and a 1/2 teaspoon of chopped onion. So such a small quantity, smaller portions. There is that 1.5 cups of fresh breadcrumbs is kind of a lot of volume, but you need that amount to cover each of the 2 pork chops. So I think smaller portions were one of the reasons that people in past years were much thinner than Americans today. 2 portions of applesauce, 6 Jonathan apples, 1/2 cup sugar, 1/8 teaspoon cinnamon, and enough water to cover. Wash, pare, core, and quarter the apples. Cover with water and cook until tender when pierced with a knitting needle. It does say that. I have to read that again because that's pretty funny. Wash, pare, core, and quarter the apples. Cover with water and cook until tender when pierced with a knitting needle. Add the sugar and cook 5 minutes more. Sprinkle cinnamon over the top when serving. All right, so hopefully you don't have a half knitted sweater attached to that knitting needle. But of course you always have one free. If you finish your row, you always have one free knitting needle. I have 2 ice picks in my kitchen, and I use those for poking at stuff, like breaking up ice cubes in my freezer and tray and stuff like that. But come to think of it, I have toothpicks and wooden skewers, and it's usually something like a toothpick I would use. But I think for apples, to tell if they are tender, what do I usually do? I usually just poke them with a fork, I think. Yeah. So that's pretty funny that she used a knitting needle. That's the first time we've had anything just like that in this book so far. Okay, cranberry pie for 4 portions, so there's going to be leftovers for another day. She's going to use 2 cups of cranberries, 1 cup of boiling water, 1.5 cups of sugar, 1 egg yolk, 1 tablespoon of water, 1 tablespoon flour, 1/2 teaspoon of butter, 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. Cook the cranberries in water until the cranberries are soft. Add the sugar and cook 5 minutes. Mix flour and water, add the egg yolk, butter, and extract. Mix thoroughly. Add to the cranberry mixture. Pour into the uncooked pie crust. Place pastry bars, lattice fashion, across the top, and bake 35 minutes in a moderate oven, which is probably 350 degrees. Now, she does have the recipe for the pie crust that you're going to put that cranberry mixture into. This pie crust, again, is for a 4-portion pie. 1 cup flour, 5 tablespoons lard, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 3 tablespoons water. Mix the flour and salt. Cut in the lard with a knife and add the water very carefully to form a stiff dough. Roll into shape and reserve a small part of the dough for the bars. Fit the crust carefully into a deep tin pie pan. Fill the crust with the cranberry filling, being careful not to let any juice run out. Cut the bars 2/3 of an inch wide. Moisten the ends and arrange in crisscross fashion across the pie. Very nice. That would be really attractive. And it sounds like a nice little pie. All right, so the Firelight Social, which I didn't talk about yet, I'd like to say that it seems kind of fun to look into a fire and try to see a little story going on in there. Kind of like looking at clouds and seeing shapes in the clouds. And that was good that they were doing a fundraiser for an orphanage. And then in chapter 95, we have Alice stopping by to visit. And Alice is also a newlywed, but much newer. She's been married only 6 weeks instead of since June. So we know that Alice is a society girl. She loves to get out and socialize any chance she can. And she has missed that part of her life. And so now she's kind of complaining about not having gone out to the theater since she's gotten married. So they're going to go out that night. And I like this discussion of how they spend their evenings. So Bettina says that she will read and do some mending. When's the last time you spent your evening doing mending, I wonder? I haven't spent my evening doing mending. No, I haven't spent any evenings doing that, I think. But she says that she takes care of her apartment so quickly that she just runs out of things to do. And so she's studying household economy, which is a really good thing to be studying in the evening and reading in the evening, which I was just thinking last night about how much time we are on our devices, our phones and our iPads and on computers, and having ourselves be entertained mindlessly. And I was wondering if maybe I should take a fast from devices for a while and do something real, interact with the real world. I know I need to go out and walk more often, be out in nature and listen to the birds. And there are some birds left this winter. I also have a stack of books to read, and reading had always been a passion of mine. And I've read so much less lately now that we have these entertainment devices. So I'm wondering if you have anything to say about that, and if you ever think about that, how would you spend an ideal quiet evening at home? All right, so the next 2 chapters will be on Christmas preparations, and then there'll be Christmas gifts. I'll probably put that together, and a Christmas shower. I might read the next 4 chapters together so that I can cover the really Christmassy times with you before Christmas arrives in my real time. So thank you for watching and listening, and I hope that you will join me again.